Hey guys, a friend from the East Coast just arrived with a long awaited delivery. I bought some stuff from a guy in the Boston area and kind of just based on some photos he sent me, and they finally arrived. So we'll start with the simple stuff first. Just bits of what remains of a Motorola 7-inch suitcase set. Hopefully this 7JP4 still has some life left and got some knobs, and this rather interesting device, which is something that lets you test a CRT voltages while it's powered up with the set. Test socket adapter. I've seen them for vacuum tubes before, but never for a CRT. So that will come in handy, I'm sure. Now under here is something I mentioned a number of times while working on a national wood 7-inch set. I mentioned that I'd be getting a metal version someday, and here it finally is. Remember, I had some trouble with that set. I never really got working to my satisfaction, and I figured I would just stop banging my head on it and wait till this one arrived, and then I could compare the two sets side by side. Missing some knobs just like the other one, but what's curious is I just realized this has brown knobs, which will go with the other set, and this one should have gray, I'm pretty sure. But between the two, I still do not have a complete set. I need a bunch more of these knobs. It's kind of rough, back's missing, but I think the insides are all here, so it should be restorable. Alright, that leaves two items. Save that one for last. I don't even know what that is, but this is the main item I wanted from the East Coast. This is one of the sets on my bucket list, actually the last set. I thought the Doom on Clifton would be the set I would never get, but I got that, and then I got this. Capehart Farnsworth P601, I think, is the model. I would have liked to have a Farnsworth branded one, which are a bit rarer, but hey, I'll take a Capehart any day. The only difference would basically be, it'd say Farnsworth instead of Capehart right here. I think somebody sold the tabletop version of this recently and actually like took off the decal and put Farnsworth on it, so I suppose I could do the same. Looks in pretty good shape. A few cracks in the safety glass, but not all the way through, and some funkiness here. I'm not sure if these are all the correct knobs. That sure looks like it. I mean, that is an RCA knob, and I don't know about this channel plate. It might be original. I don't know. But otherwise, it's in really good shape, and it's a pretty darn cool looking TV. Take a look around the back. So I believe the deal was Farnsworth designed it, but then shortly thereafter, Capehart bought or merged with Farnsworth, so they would produce all the same sets. Some said Capehart, some said Farnsworth, otherwise identical. There's a Capehart speaker in there. Rather cool metal back, hinged, kind of unique. In fact, the whole thing has a lot of unique features to it. Go through in more detail when I pull up the schematic. Even in just what they would call the controls. I like framing, which I think is horizontal hold. Or background, which I think is contrast or brightness. I'm sorry, that's contrast, so background must be brightness. Alright, so finally, let's see what the mystery item is. If I can get this moving blanket off. Alright, it's TV. Oh wow, I know what this is. Wow, this is like the one Admiral model I don't have that I've been wanting to get for a long time. Bakelite tabletop, 12-inch set. Cool. Very cool. So I've got the number of the 10-inch, but I never got the 12. 22x22 or 20x22, something like that. Awesome, awesome. That really rounds out the Admiral collection nicely. I brought everything up inside for a closer look. First, I think I'll take a look inside the Admiral because it's easy to get at. Got a little table here, some felt pads so I can swing it around. Wasn't sure when this was outside what color it was, but clearly it's the black now that I have better lighting, which would make it, I think, a 12x11. The more common version would be the brown. So not only is it a set I've been trying to find for a while, I got the less common version of it, which leaves the door, which is so often broken off. They made two styles of these doors. The later one being a little more common, and those I have a few of, but this early one where it's fairly skinny, they use it for very long and not on very many models, and they very often break off. I've got one on my console version of this set, but even that one has a crack in it. But at least I have one, and perhaps someday somebody could make some duplicates of it. 3D printing, sure, it's an option, but you've got to get a 3D model of it first, which means either drawing it up in a CAD program, which would take quite a while, or get a 3D scanner, which are kind of expensive and not very common. But as that stuff becomes more common, I imagine this might actually be a good application for a 3D printer, because I think they can do clear plastic fairly well. And then it gets back painted with gold paint. Anyways, as for the rest of it, it looks to be unbroken. It's got the metal back, which is a nice bonus. It's rusty, but that's common enough and easy to deal with. Let's swing it around and take a peek inside. But before that, here is a look at the console version. They did not make any black Bakelite consoles, not to my knowledge, only tabletop black. And here is the door that's missing from the other set. Oh, and of course another way to do this would be a more traditional route, which is to just make a mold of it, which I suppose I could try doing. You see, it's not the simplest thing. If you just push this into a mold, that's one thing, you get the overall shape, but it's not just back painted. There's actually symbols and stuff on here, and they used at least two colors, gold and black, to get those stars on there. Here's the speaker side. Got some slots cut on the side for sound to come out. There's a for ventilation. Again, a bit dirty, but no cracks, no chips. Should clean up really nice. There's the back, which, yes, is rusty, but again, not a problem. That's some evapor rust, maybe clear coated afterwards. Be just fine. And here's a hole for the centering lever. Now, this looks somewhat familiar, and it certainly will inside. Is that this is basically the same chassis as in the 20X136 wooden tabletop version I restored recently. Basically, the identical set. Just in a wooden cabinet, and that one had a masonite back. The only thing about these metal backs is they're not all created equal on these Admiral sets. They may look similar, but the ones for this type, the single chassis, only two of the screws actually go into the Bakelite. The other two go into the chassis itself, whereas a lot of the other backs for Admirals have screw holes around the perimeter, and they really won't fit right on these sets. Just got one left to take out. And here's the inside. Well, I believe my friend said he got this for $10, which is a great deal. Hard to go wrong for $10. The sticker on the front, I'm sure, makes it look like it was part of an auction, but that's not where he got it from. I think he got it like a ham or swap fest. So perhaps this one unsold, or maybe it passed through a few hands before it finally ended up here. Alright, so light surface corrosion all around. Not too unusual, easy enough to deal with. Familiar enough chassis. So there's actually three versions of 20X1, Y1, Z1. 20X1 used in the 10-inch versions. The Y1 was used in that wooden version tabletop I restored, and the Z1 is the one that has the four controls close together and the flip door in the front. Little spacer here. I think this was one up here between the back, which bulges out a bit to accommodate the picture tube. So there's some Admiral branded tubes, but they aren't all. Sylvania picture tube should be a 12LP4, black and white, 12-inch round picture tube. Well, I think that'll be the next thing to do, is test that picture tube. Gonna go with the RCA WT509A this time around. Read the line. Just calibrate. And your filament glue. Your cathode leakage. Super low. G1 leakage, super low. Check the cutoff, just have this fully counterclockwise before you start. And then start turning it up. Cool. And as I let it sit here, it's getting better and better. So let's adjust it for 2 ticks. And check the emissions. Oh, actually, I had it in the emissions position. Oops. There. Okay, we got cutoff control. So this is an odd tester. I've used it a bunch of times. I still forget all the goofy steps. Alright, adjust in the cutoff position, adjust it for 2 ticks on the meter. Now, check the emissions. Alright, yeah, this picture 2 is fine. And now let's take a closer look at the Capehart 661P. I looked at some other photos of this set online, and they all seem to have the same knobs. The RCA peanut, fine tuning with the goofy things sticking out the side. So that is correct, believe it or not. And a number of them seem to have the same problem with the safety glass having cracks in it. As for the cabinet, it's pretty darn good shape, the original finish. I like to say that the side, it's minimal alligatoring, really nice. This, of course, is a scratch here, but it's actually pretty light for most of it, and I think I can flow a little bit of lacquer into that crack and buff it out. And this is the worst I've seen. A little bit of steam, maybe a little stain to match the color, and fill it in with lacquer and buff it out. In other words, it could be touched up. No need to refinish this cabinet. Nor would I want to, because it will not help the value. Now, check that out. Speaker down there. Nice Capehart speaker. Label on the side, mouse 661P, 300 watts. Capehart made some radios. I know the speakers in those are very much in demand. I believe this is a Jensen speaker. See a P12 down there. Alright, now the upper chassis. Great to get the back on this. That's pretty sweet. It's got a metal mesh back with hinges on it. And a warning about the high voltages present inside. So I gotta pop out one screw and then I can swing it open. Alright, here we go. Oh, I had a problem immediately. The AC interlock has been cut off. Looks like the cord was pretty crunchy on there. Hopefully it doesn't indicate any problems. Oh, this is probably the rest of it. Yeah, it looks pretty disgusting. Very, very hard and crunchy. Oh, looks like so. Oh, okay. I see somebody bypassed the AC interlock and wired a cord right into it. Well, I have to do something about that. 2 huge power transformers, or maybe one's a choke, but I mean, damn, that's pretty substantial. Bit of iron there, and look at that. This thing. Standard Transformer Corporation, Chicago, and I know what this is only because I just happened to look at the early TV Foundation's photos of one of these guys, and this appears to be a sync chassis that's separate from the main chassis. There'll be a cable and a plug plugging into the main chassis somewhere down in there. See it over here. A lot of octal tubes. 6J7, yeah, this is some oddball tubes. And it uses a voltage doubler, which is crazy because these picture tubes don't need that much voltage. And a 6L6. Yes, I do believe this does not use a flyback. This has a separate conventional like amplifier driving output transformer to drive the horizontal deflection coils, and then a separate independent high voltage free running oscillator. Dual 5U4 rectifiers. So I don't know what the performance is like, but it's certainly a very robust design. And it's rather independent from RCA. I don't think they licensed any patenting on that, because Farnsworth is sort of credited with inventing all electronic television. He certainly had his own system in early, but used a rather different type of camera tube than the iconoscope. You can see plenty more about that in some YouTube documentary videos. Well, I thought this was on the CRT itself, but now it's a metal shield. A pretty robust way to make contact with the aqueduct. Usually just like a little bit of springy wire, but here is a big metal plate that's just pushing right against the bell of the CRT. There's a tuner at a bit of an angle. It feels weird when I try to change the channel, so I don't want to force it. There might be something up with that. Might just be, I need some fresh grease, or maybe some mechanical issue with it. That is probably to reduce ringing or oscillations inside the tube, or microphonics. I've seen this plenty of times on a 6J6 inside the tuner, but this I think is a 6AC7 or something like that, metal tube. Never seen that before. So it looks to be in great condition. No corrosion, it's just dirty. And it's all here. So, excellent. I mean, I got it, when I bought this, even though I didn't see it in person, I certainly got some photos and descriptions of the condition. That's a little bit boring though. Hopefully that's just debris and it's not evidence of like a rodent nest inside there. I guess I can take out those Phillips screws and we can get a peek underneath the chassis. Well, crap. I just took off that metal mesh, and sure enough, that does look like a rodent nest. I'm kind of afraid to look up underneath the chassis now. Something I really haven't had to deal with too much, especially not on a really nice set. Ugh. Yuck. Well, doesn't look like it's really. I don't think it's been chewed up or anything, but I can't see everything from here. Yuck, yuck, yuck. I wonder how the heck a rodent would even get inside of that chassis. I mean, geez. It looks like it's just solid metal all the way around. There must be an access point somewhere through the top of the chassis, I would think. Well. Man. I know other guys have had to deal with similar situations, so. Nothing new to the hobby exactly. It's just something I'm gonna deal with now and then. Hopefully it won't be too bad, and I will be sure to wash thoroughly so I don't pick up any nasty germs, although I don't think there's been any rodent in this thing in many years. I don't want to get involved with pulling out the whole chassis right now. Save that for a much later date. From what I can see peering around underneath, there is no obvious damage, so I'm not too concerned about that. However, I looked up the info for this online. I found detailed service info and photos at Phil Nelson's restoration site. And I knew he had worked on one of these before. I just refreshed my memory by reviewing his restoration project again, and something immediately hit me is that this power transformer does not look like this, and either in his set or in the service info. It's a transformer that looks kind of more like this. and it has a control on top to select the line voltage. So this could either be a production change, or it is a repair. I'm inclined to think that it's a repair because they got one screw here, no screw here. It looks like they tried to maybe solder it onto the chassis and it didn't take. So that's not cool. A few other things. The design of this isn't as unique as I thought. For example, the horizontal sync circuit is pretty much just a clone of the RCA design, and it does actually have a flyback. It's just an odd design that a 6L6 is used for the horizontal oscillator and output tube. It's all in one, just one tube, and this is and that does drive both the horizontal yoke winding and produce the high voltage. As for the picture tube, I thought it was a 10BP4, but it's supposed to be a 10FP4, which is illuminized, which is super nice to have since it's a sharper picture. Can't quite tell if that's got a reflective coating on it or not, but I can certainly test it because either way, the voltage is the same for testing purposes. Perhaps I can find a number on the base. Yes, it is a 10FP4. Made by C-A-U-L... Oh, Rowland. Or R-A-U-L-A-N-D. Okay. Yeah, sure. They were based in the Chicago area, and Zenith later bought them. Alright, well, if that's good, that's certainly a very nice thing. Alright, let's see. Calibrate. And check for filament glow. Yeah, a little hard to see, but yeah, it's glowing. And HK leakage. A little bit, but well below the threshold, being bad. No G1 leakage. Cut off. Cut off control. And emissions. Really good. Very good emissions. Better than that 12LP4. I just think this may very well not be the original picture tube, which is fine with me. It's still a 10FP4. That's the important thing. I just didn't see many hours. I just think it may be a replacement, because if the set's on enough use to burn out the power transformer, and they paid to get that replaced, they might very well have just opted to get a new picture tube in while they were having it serviced. Cool. Alright, let's take a closer look at the 7JP4. I already went ahead and used some Windex and cleaned off the face. And as is often the case, believe it or not, there are actually some flaws in the glass, a couple bubbles there. I guess that was acceptable back then, and they really aren't all that noticeable when it's in operation. A couple more little defects here and there too. Also, depending on where they are, they might be off screen, because you'd project a 4:3 aspect ratio rectangular picture on this, and this is the vertical plane. The defects are up here. The picture would be going like through here. Can't tell just by looking at it though. Alright, so this came from a Motorola, which always have these shields, so it's a dead giveaway of where it came from. There's a little conical shield around the bell of the CRT, and then they just wrap some light gauge aluminum stock around the neck and then hold it in place with some masking tape. So it's definitely a poor man's magnetic shield. And that was to prevent signals from the nearby chassis from interfering with the picture. And I guess by the time things got accelerated and deflected up to this point, they didn't need any more shielding. But also this coating on the inside provides some shielding. That's actually the highest voltage. I think it's the A3 accelerator. So there's actually high voltage that comes all the way through the base up into and makes contact with that internal conductive coating there to accelerate the electrons towards the face. Alright, now, as is often the case with these, the base is not only loose, but some of the pins are ripped out. I did get, however, this little case here, which happens to have 2 pins in it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clean out the solder from the ends and thread them back on and solder them in place so I can test this. However, they're still going to be kind of loose, and the whole base is loose, and some of the other pins are a little loose. And I have salvaged a couple bases from some scope CRTs, and if this tests good and I want to use it eventually, I will bust this off and maybe put on a new base. I haven't had a whole lot of luck with stabilizing these. I'm going to try using some glue, but there's a lot of force when you put on a big 14-pin socket, and what tends to happen is when you pull it off, it rips these out. I use some fine sandpaper to clean off the ends of the leads and to tind them. I use some solder wick to clean out the ends of the broken off pins. I figured out which pin went where by looking at the pattern where they broke off. And I used a little bit of super glue and stuck them back down, and then soldered the ends of the pins there. And they seem to be on fairly well. I went ahead and just put a bead of super glue around the whole base. Hold that on. Whether it will hold up or not under use, we'll see, because heat can actually break down super glue and it loses its strength. But certainly strong enough to hold it together while I do a little testing here. So I got Suncor CR70, which is one of the few testers that can actually do a 7JP4. However, it's just testing the emissions. The screen phosphor can actually be damaged by ion bombardment, because these do not use ion traps, and I don't think we've got filament. Because normally it'd be drawing down the voltage. I'll have to crank up the filament control, plus I don't see a glow. I don't think I've ever encountered a completely dead 7JP4. There's no filament glow, alright. Well, I'll certainly try tinning up the leads and cleaning off the pins. It could just be some corrosion. However, I'm not seeing any deflection on the meter or any spark when I connect up the lead there, so that's not a good sign. Well, let's heat up the soldering iron and heat up those pins. See if we can establish some continuity. I can always check with an ohmmeter as well. Oh, actually, no, there is another problem. That's right. Last time I used this tester, it was on my GE Portacolor, and I used one of the adapters, and I changed the settings on these pins. It's a very, very common mistake with this tester. When you use the universal adapter, forget about these numbers in here. The switches are always set to 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright. And you connect up these clip leads according to this. And these are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, let's try that again. It's more like it. So it really pulls down the current, which drops down its filament voltage. So you gotta crank up the knob. I'm sure the filament's glowing. No, I don't actually see it, but that could just be because of the shielding that's in the way. Well, let's just go through the tests. It's good. Cut-off controls a little weak. We do have emissions. Basically every 7JP4 I've tested has emissions well into the good, but the brightness on the screen definitely varies. You really need to put this into a set to tell for sure, but if you get this far with this tester, you should know it's a functioning tube and will produce some sort of image. You just can't be sure of the quality. Now that it's warmed up, I got even better cutoff control. So I'll see if I can dig up a working set. I think I have a VT71 I can pop open. Here's a Motorola VT71 I restored a while back. Pop the back off, unplug the CRT, just flip that socket around and plugged it into the sky. So let's see if it actually works on a real set. Looks promising. Kind of crazy ending. Pretty good picture. Pretty good picture. It's about as good as the picture tube that's currently in the set. Tweak the brightness. Yeah, it'll work out just fine. Cool. Definitely a usable CRT. I'm just picking up a weak over-the-air signal, so it's not the greatest quality, but ignore that. The fact is, it's got a decent, sharp, bright, focused picture. I'm not sure when I'll get to these sets, but in the meantime, I've started cleaning them up. Novus number 2 on the Admiral. I can already see a lot of potential in this set. It's cleaning up very nicely. The very shiny, hard surface is not dulled or faded, so this will turn out to be a very nice TV. Just got to do something with that control door. I'm going to use a little bit of lemon oil on the Capehart. So I hope you enjoyed this look at the recent delivery of TVs from the East Coast. And no sooner did I record this segment when something just arrived via FedEx.